Hello, everybody. This is Chris Jerome with the Radical Independent Facebook page, and I'm here with Dan Griffin, and he is a co-host of the show Libservative.
Yep, it's a bit of an antiquated name at this point, but we thought it'd be funny and make enough people mad, so we used it. So we'll see where that goes.
We're going to talk about the show a little bit, but before we kind of dive into that, do you mind giving me a little bit of your background, kind of like how you got involved in how this even came about?
Sure. I actually come from a sports talk background. I did a show about that for a long time, and I've always been a bit of a political nerd, and a lot of my sports friends weren't exactly interested in discussing stuff like that
Imagine
because
that.
yeah, it's sort of the normie types who were taught by their parents. You never discuss politics or religion, and so I kind of came up as a typical. I turned 20 in 2008, so 2008 was the first general election I was able to vote in. Like most 20-year-olds of the time, I was a hope and change Obamacrat. World peace is coming, racism is over, kumbaya, all that stuff. And then sort of 2016 came along, and Bernie Sanders came along and lost to the coronated Hillary Clinton in that infamous primary, and that was kind of my first real realization that something is deeply wrong in our political system.
You know what? I got to cut you off for just a second
Yeah.
because you've stolen my thunder in a way.
Oh
Not that I
no.
was here to talk about me, but yeah, 2016 was insane. I've always been independent minded. I've always, been interested in politics. Most not politics, mostly political theory, political philosophy, that sort of thing. But
Hmm.
that election was fascinating for multiple reasons. Number one, this guy named Gary Johnson, who I thought was very interesting, different, kind of a breath of fresh air. And like you said, the Bernie fiasco and how the two parties kind of jumped. Johnson was doing really well that election for a third party, right? I think he got the highest percentage of any third party
Did he
since
come away with like
Thoreau.
5% or close
Yeah.
to it?
Well, he
Yeah.
was doing even better before that,
Hmm.
obviously, in a lot of the polls, especially with young people, veterans, stuff like that. Anyways, I just thought it was kind of cool that this outsider was making some ground. And then I saw the duopoly go to work on him. Boom. The media attack dogs, the money, everything shut hit down really quick, right?
He was
And
the what is Aleppo guy, right?
yeah, right. They stumped him
Okay.
on, a random question, and suddenly he's no good anymore. But anyways, yeah, that election was kind of eye-opening for me as well. That's really where I started paying attention to just how kind of broken the system is in a way. But
Hmm.
anyways, yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, just piggybacking right along that, I really hadn't even thought of Gary Johnson, which to the duopoly, I think that was kind of by design. I don't think I'm supposed to be thinking about Gary Johnson in 2026. Um, but yeah, I did what everybody else did. I held my nose and I filled in a little bubble next to Hillary Clinton's name. The obedient Obamacrat that I was at the time. I'm actually pretty sure I could like smell her paraben based perfume through the ballot as I stood over it because Orange Man bad, right? That was the whole thing at the time. So I did that and I went home as again almost everybody else did, expecting her to win, and then she didn't. And I came to that realization like to my next big epiphany in my sort of political journey, which is, oh my god, I don't know anything. Yeah, so I that kind of got me into. I'd already loosely known my co-host Corey. It's nice to look at another face besides his ugly one for a little while here.
Thank you.
But I knew him through family and friends of family, and we had cursory conversations in the past. And I reached out to him, sort of about starting Libservative up, and we've been doing it ever since. When would we have started now? 2021. We've been doing it that long. Holy cow! And have we've become good buddies in the process, and we enjoy what we do.
So, can I try to pigeonhole you a little bit? What's the angle of the libservative? Are you, we try to force everybody onto that simplistic binary political
Mm-hmm.
spectrum, and so is there a certain perspective, a certain angle? Are you middle right, left, or kind of all over the place, or
No, I mean what you just said was kind of the idea behind the name, but I think it goes over a lot of people's heads.
right?
Is that the binary is sort of ridiculous? It's a ridiculous name that
Yeah.
nobody uses. Like I said, it's become a little bit antiquated probably over the last 5 years. But for me, I mean, if I had to put a label on myself, I'd call myself, sort of a Ron Paul Rothbardian sort of free market libertarian type, which
Okay.
is a loser's game. But to us, the show is a lot of it's mostly about principle. I mean, at the end
Right.
of the day, it's it's mostly about principle and doing it in sort of a humorous way, because what you see a lot of is people talking about morality and people weaponizing morality, and to me,
When it's
I don't,
convenient.
yeah, I don't think anybody actually cares about anybody else's morality. I don't really care that much, Chris, what your morals are. You probably don't care that much what mine are, because they're kind of individualistic, but principles are kind of communal. That's kind of what our Constitution was based on. It's a very principled document. Look no further than the First Amendment. I mean, the whole point of the damn thing is to protect the speech that you don't like so that you can protect the speech that you do like. And so those are the things that are sort of weaponized, and sort of the things that we call out and make fun of a lot, because I don't think it's easy in this lane to get to people without humor. I think humor is the easiest way to do it. Nothing lowers somebody's guard more than humor.
Right.
So that's kind of the direction we go.
So, the Radical Independence and Nonpartisan page, and I tend to just generally approach things from a fairly moderate, centrist kind of perspective. I see the center as being, I don't know, that classical liberal constitutional, founding constitutional values and principles and stuff like that. That's our center. That's our middle. And
It's supposed to be anyway.
I see the two parties kind of going away. Like I don't think of the center as just some arbitrary point between two, left wing, right wing. But yeah, so I'm nonpartisan, and what sort of attracted me to you guys was the fact that not so much the ideological aspect, but you're calling out a lot of the systemic issues, the problems, sort of the bigger, more fundamental aspects of the system. A lot of the hypocrisy, right? A lot of the team sport aspect of it, which I thought was interesting, and it's kind of right up my alley.
We're calling balls
So
and strikes.
yeah, really. And, if you're going to try to stick to principles, you basically have to be fair and honest about that. And I think people pick up on it, when they listen. So I'm supportive of independent voices and people trying to confront, it's what I call the corrupt rig duopoly, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
like my catchphrase. So you guys talk about kind of topical current events, weekly
Mm-hmm.
basis, what's going on, stuff like that. Make some predictions, sort of big picture, like I don't know, 2, 4, 5 years, 6 years. Where are things headed, and is there hope?
I was going to ask, do you want what I would say after I take the black pill or the white pill?
Yeah, maybe we need both, right? It's like it just flip a coin, right?
I mean, I guess I'll start with the black pill. That way we can kind of finish that portion on a good note, which is that, like, I think you're going to see a continued, ramping up. And honestly, this black pill part might actually turn into a white pill if you really think about it. But I think we're going to see a continued, ramping up of just intense propaganda and just intense overall censorship from the duopoly. And I guess the reason that might spin into sort of a white pilled take is that it's kind of this idea that they see it, meaning like essentially anybody in power sees what's going on with young people. I look no further than what just happened in the fourth district of Kentucky to Thomas Massey.
Mhm.
Um, because that Tuesday night, I was sitting here. I was actually remodeling the area you see behind me, and I'm kind of keeping up on what's going on. I was nervous because I'll never discount that PAC money. Even though some of my friends in Kentucky were sure Thomas Massey was going to win that election, I was like, I'm not so sure. Let's see. But when the results came through, and they came through rather quickly because it's a relatively small district, I was just beside myself. I was so upset. I was just disturbed by the fact that, money is really what wins elections still. And like, this was a chance to kind of push back on that. And then the exit polls came out, and I was pretty ecstatic about what the exit polls had to say. When you just look at it demographically,
Mm.
when you look at the reason Ed Galrine won that election in the fourth district of Kentucky, it was Fox News
Oh,
watching boomers.
I think I saw some of the data coming out of
Mm-hmm.
that,
Nobody
and
under the age of
he
55 voted for Ed Galrine.
yeah, exactly. I saw
Nobody.
something like you break it down sort of by 10, 10 years, 20 to 30, 30 to 40. Like Massey, I think won every one except for the 60 and older or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was that was sort of one of those moments that went from a black pill to a white pill for me. I think it's a wonderful sign. Um,
Yeah, I hate to see people like Massey and others who are very more independent minded. And I
mhm.
think the younger people are a little bit more probably accepting of that because I don't know, maybe I'm stereotyping, but I feel like a lot of the older people, they've got their party that that's the way it's been, it's the way it'll always be, and it's very tribal. Whereas I think the younger people tend to look at things a little bit more independently and can kind of skip around a little bit more. So yeah, there probably is a silver lining from that in terms of
Yeah, I mean,
demographics.
I think I won't do it. I won't do it here to you, Chris. But on my show, you'll hear us go after boomers pretty hard. And it's not that we like have issue with like our own moms and dads. It's just that that generation to me is so overly and easily propagandized because they didn't even understand that an ad run in that district of some CCTV footage of Thomas Massey holding hands with Ilhan Omar and AOC walking into a hotel. They didn't understand it was AI. I mean, seriously,
Right.
a 72-year-old might not understand that that's AI.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
it's a pretty tough media landscape
yeah,
for sure. But yeah, if you can't even kind of figure out the basic stuff like that, that's a
I think we would all agree it's time for younger generations, whether it's Gen X or millennials, to step into that role. And it's going to happen soon. I mean, that kind of leads me to my white pill. If you want me to go into that,
sure.
um, I'm a big believer in horseshoe theory. I don't
Yes.
know. You familiar with
Yes.
horseshoe theory?
Yeah, both sides go crazy and sort of ironically become more alike, right? They loop back around to connect in an authoritarian way, basically.
They end up in the same place. I've
Yeah.
kind of got a little bit of a white pilled version of horseshoe theory, if that makes sense. And that is that on the left and the right, you're seeing these populist movements sort of converging together. I look at Zoran Mamdani's election in New York. I look at, if we're talking about folks on the left, I'm looking at Zoran Mamdani's election in New York. I'm looking at what's the guy's name in Texas, James Tallarico winning that primary for the Democrats. And then in my own home state of Michigan, a guy by the name of Abdul El Sayed has a chance to sort of beat the more, normie establishment Democrats. And these are not folks that I would be economically or politically aligned with in any way. I don't think I would vote for these people on a ballot. But if you just pay attention to what, Zoran Mamdani said in that mayoral debate, whatever it was, 8 months ago, and all the candidates were asked, where's the first place you're going to visit? And they all said Israel. And then Zoran Mamdani said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying in New York. And, regardless of what your feelings are about Israel and all that stuff, it's like Americans right now with the affordability issues, whether, you have a leftist take on it or a more libertarian take on it, we all recognize the problems. And Zoran Mamdani in that situation, even though I would never vote for this guy, he gave the right answer. And so I feel like the populist left is starting to get it. And, the actual America firsters on the right are starting to get it. And when we can get to a point where they can start arguing about what their differences are, I feel like we've gotten somewhere.
Hmm, interesting. Yeah, there's some strange bedfellows kind of in a lot of ways. A lot of weird sort of political mixing where, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, you would have been like, oh, whoa, these people, things changing.
2 years ago, Chris, do you think Ro Khanna and Marjorie Taylor Greene would have like met somewhere,
Yeah, that's
a couple
yeah.
of years ago? I don't think so.
MTG. So,
Yeah.
on the Radical Independent, I talk about election reform a lot. I feel like we need a lot of systemic structural tweaks to deal with the intense partisanship, the emotional tribalism, the toxic dysfunction. I do think that's a huge issue, the polarization. And I was just talking to a guy earlier today. He's written a book on this. He went around the country and talked to just people, like 33 different states over the course of a year, talking to a lot of just normal everyday people. And he said his black pill was it might have to just be blood in the streets for people to kind of wake up and kind of see what's going on in terms of the corrupt rig duopoly, a broken system, stuff like that. I mean, I hope it doesn't get there. Obviously, I'm sitting here trying to preach about unity and civility, and I'm trying to ward that off, but that that might be what it takes. It has to take to get people to wake up and kind of see what's going on.
I hope you're wrong. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not going to lie. Chris, there are days where I feel that way. I mean, that Tuesday evening where Thomas Massey lost that election, I'm not going to lie. Those dark thoughts kind of crept into my head because I mean, you know why he lost that election. I know why he lost that election. But I sat there and I said, after I had a chance to kind of calm down and look at the exit polls, I went, you know what? I'll go look on Twitter or X and the folks that are supporting the establishment and the sort of neocon establishment, because that's not just a Republican thing for anybody who wants to think that it is. Go ahead and gloat, because to me, that might have been their sort of battle of the bulge moment.
Yeah, I
You
don't
made
know.
your way back into enemy lines, but
It's
yeah,
so hard to say in politics. I normally don't get into the day-to-day political retail politics grind. It's not really my thing. I'm more into the more academic stuff.
that's why you're
But
sane.
but that said, it's really hard to predict. You talk
Yeah.
about Battle of the Bulge. It looks like MAGA might be kind of struggling in some ways, and then next thing you know, it just kind of goes back and forth, and I've given up. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? It's like so weird and out of control. It's hard to see any trends in my mind anyway. But the
I
more
mean,
people we have, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, I'll defer to you on the trends portion of it. Not as much of an analytical guy. I came from sports podcast, like I told you. So there is a fun team way to do it. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's super tough to predict. I mean, we talk about on our show all the time. Trump looks like he's dead in the water. It looks like JD Vance has absolutely no chance to win that nomination based on, even especially, when you lose independence, good luck. And they have, but a lot can
Right.
happen in a year and a half. I mean, who the hell knows?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, fortunes have changed in less time. You
Look
look at
no
the
further than
political.
Trump's political comeback. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that's a good example.
Well, the more people we have fighting the good fight, a part of it is just kind of pointing out how ridiculous things are and some of the issues that we're trying to deal with. And the closer we come to a kind of a paradigm shift, I guess, away from business as usual, because what we're doing now ain't working, right? So,
More and more people are realizing it, though, every day.
right,
It's a slow trickle.
sure. All right, Dan. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. People could check out the libservativeshow.com, I believe. Was there
Yeah, and
anything?
we're
Yeah, go
say that
ahead.
again.
I was gonna say, is there anything else? Any other projects you guys got going on?
Not at the moment. We're working on a little bit of a rebrand, but it's taken 2 years. So we are going to be Libservative for a while here. We might have a name change, we might not, but we're available on all the podcast platforms too. If you just search Libservative, you can find us on all the socials at Libservative Pod. We don't tweet enough. We're still a bit of a small operation, but passionate about what we do, like having fun. I will warn the people, if you're listening in the car, probably shouldn't have any kids in the back seat. The language is can get a little bit blue from time to time, but we have a good time. Everybody gets our ire equally. At least we try to. So
Sounds awesome. All right, cool. Well, it was great to chat with you, Dan.
you as well, Chris. We'll be in touch. I look forward to talking to you some more.